Hello everyone, this is David the Real Med White with another video. And before I even start, I would like to thank everyone for their positive comments so far, especially in my last video. Of course, there are some haters, but that's going to happen. And I would also like to thank Jay Dyer himself, the king himself, for promoting my video everywhere on Facebook, on Discord, on YouTube. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we can come up with more good Orthodox content. This video is going to be about how Roman Catholic and Orthodox epistemology is ultimately presuppositional. There are some few questions that we will be answering in this video. What is reception theory? How do we know what council is true or not? What is Roman Catholic epistemology in comparison to Roman Catholic epistemology? And what are the consequences of Roman Catholic epistemology? Let's start by defeating a few misconceptions about our view of the church. Some people will argue that we say uh, that councils are all infallible. That is not true. There are robber councils and there are true councils. Some people will say that synodal majority is what makes a council infallible. Some people will argue that we have pentarchy and that's our version of a pope. And some people will say that the secular leader is what establishes some of our dogmas. And people like the Dimond brothers will say, you adhere to receptionism. You guys accept reception theory. Let's explain what receptionism even is. It's an idea, it's an ecclesiological idea that was that was formed in response to Roman Catholic epistemology. It's popular by Alexei Stepanovich Khomyakov's time, and today its most famous proponent is Metropolitan Vare. The idea itself states that a council's ecumenicity is determined by the church receiving that council. And we will say that's half true and half false. Ultimately, Orthodox epistemology is based on truth. So what is the difference between a true council and a robber council? Well, whether it's true or not, an example I will give is Ephesus 2. How do you know Ephesus 2 is a robber council? Because it teaches false Christology. We will say that the church is led by the Holy Spirit. So just like in Acts 2, we will say that the Holy Spirit is with the church even still today. And our church epistemology is ultimately self-referential. It's circular. And some people might have a problem with that. They might say, well, isn't circularity a fallacy? We will say, well, there are valid forms of circularity. So the way you will try to explain language is you will explain it by using language. That itself is circular, but that's a valid form of circularity. And so, how is Roman Catholic epistemology in comparison to Orthodox? Well, everyone knows that Roman Catholicism has the papacy. The papacy is the office of the papacy declares what is true and what is false, dogmatically. And that begs the question, though, how do we know that the magisterium itself is a true magisterium as compared to a false magisterium? And in this, I will invoke Robert Sisko's article. In this article, which I will be linking in the description below, in his article, he's arguing against sedevacantism and he's defending that Pope Francis is an actual Roman Catholic Pope. He says in his article, Father Smith went on to explain that because the Church is an indefectible, visible society, it can never adhere to a false head. There is no need to study canon law or spend years researching ancient Latin texts buried away in archives. To be absolutely certain that a particular pope was or is the true pope, all that is required to ascertain his legitimacy is to find out if he was recognized as pope by the church. And so according to Sidney Smith, the way we can know if a pope is legitimate or not is if he is universally received by the church, which is reception theory. That's textbook reception theory. Further in his article, he also states that the church is self-referential. He says, we have only to ask ourselves in reference to any particular pope, either the living pope whom we are called upon to obey, or some past pope in whom we are historically interested, whether the true church adheres or adhered to him or not, and then we can be sure at once, independently of all detailed historical investigations, whether the title by which he entered upon the see of Peter was valid or not. And now one might say, well, okay, so we do adhere to receptionism. But what's the issue? What the issue is that Roman Catholic theology, Roman Catholic apologetics, relies on classical foundationalism. A lot of theologians, such as Thomas Aquinas, use classical foundationalism to prove their arguments. But we can see here that Roman Catholic epistemology is also circular. And so Roman Catholic epistemology is ultimately presuppositional. Their starting point is the church. Their starting point is that the church is true. Another problem with the Roman Catholic Church and its epistemology will be doctrinal development. You can never be certain whether a doctrine has been fully developed or not. And by the way, I'm fully aware that development is considered distinct in the Roman Catholic Church, but nevertheless, there are many key issues. One key issue will be the status of Saint Gregory Palamas. He was referred to as a heretic by the Roman Catholic Church, and along with his theology, but now today, not only is he a saint, his theology is also considered acceptable in the Roman Catholic Church. And so I would like to recap this video by stating the epistemology of all the churches here present. So in Roman Catholic, they will say that their epistemology is based on the papacy. How do they know that the Pope is a true Pope if he's universally received? Sedevacantist epistemology will say, well, yes, we know what counts are true or not because of the Pope, and we know how a Pope is true or not. We know Pope's orthodoxy, whether they go against church teaching, which itself is quite ironic because the Dimond brothers will argue against receptionism, they will argue against our epistemology, but ultimately their epistemology is the same as ours. How do they know that the Pope is true or not? Well, they look at the church. They look at the church teachings. They look at the truth. Orthodox epistemology is that we know what councils are true or not because by the virtue of it being true. And eventually the church will receive true councils and it will reject false robber councils. And that will be the end of the video. That will conclude the video. And hopefully you guys learned something new about church epistemology. Thank you all for watching. God bless you all.